All right, check this out. This is a fictitious surf report story, and it deals with surfer Tom at 43 years old was catching waves that were almost 92 feet high, and he surfed that place for a few years. And one day there was a swell that came in that was 120 feet. And it was so big that he couldn't go out. Tom couldn't go out. And so Tom lived far away. He lived like 135 miles away. And his sister lived like 160 miles away. And just bear with me on my storyline. In the 1980s, the surf culture was totally different, and Tom wasn't used to it. But around, Tom also lived on 100th Avenue, and he lived there for about 2 years. And he had a cousin that lived on 150th Avenue, 50, blocks away. And he had, for him to get to the beach, it took him 192 miles to get there. And to get to the surf spot, it was 193 miles. So Tom set out a victory. Oh, and then there was this other surf spot that was just 2 more miles further, like 195 miles. Now, on this island, an unknown island, there was surf spots all around it. There was another surf spot with a name that I don't know, but I know it was 207 miles away from where he was. And that wave was even better than the first place that he surfed. Now, could you imagine having waves on an island that was that big, where you'd have to drive to the next surf spot that was 260 miles away, where the wave was just perfect? It was, it was a great beach break. So Tom surfed there, and a friend of his told him, hey, if you go about, 26 more miles west, you might find another surf spot. So Tom drove a total of 286 miles to that surf spot. When he got to that surf spot, he surfed the waves, and they were okay. But a local told him that, hey, you know how like there's like posts that say like as you're driving, there's this amount of kilometers and then this amount of kilometers and this amount of kilometers. Well, when you reach the 306 kilometer mark, turn right and drive towards the beach, and you'll find this pristine wave all by itself. So Tom did that, went there, but it was all blown out. And so he was like, what do I do? So I guess he decided to drive back around the island about 367 miles back to another surf spot that had better waves than where he was just got at than where he was, that was all blown out. Now, can you imagine that Tom drove 367 miles to find this other wave, but he passed this other wave up by on his way there, and it was like 17 miles before the 367 kilometer mark. So that means it would be about the 350 kilometer mark. And he surfed there and stayed there for a few days. Ran into a local there, and the local told him about this other surf spot that was about 30 more kilometers away. So Tom, as he's so into it and wanting to find these waves, he drove that extra 30 kilometers, or one could say 380 kilometers. And he found a lot of surfers there. It was kind of crowded. So he thought to himself, well, I just went from 367 kilometers to 350 kilometers. Let's see what's a little bit further. So Tom went from the kilometer mark at 350 all the way to 380 kilometers and found this perfect A-frame. And he surfed that place for a couple days, but then he got tired of it, and he with his binoculars at the beach, he looked a little bit down west of the beach and saw this other, looked like a point break, and it was 2 kilometers less. So it was like about 378 kilometers. And when he got there, it was so crowded. There was just like a lot of surfers out in the water. And so, and they didn't get along that well. So Tom, was like, I can't handle this place. Let's go find out what's out further. So Tom got back on the road and drove like, I don't know, 10 or 12 more kilometers around 380. When he reached the 383 kilometer mark, again, he turned right to go down the beach road. And he surfed that place for maybe a couple days or whatever. And then he was like, I'm gonna leave and I'm gonna go back home and visit my grandma. So he got on the road and he drove back all the way around the island where his grandma lived at the 411 kilometer mark. And he visited her. But, that was the last day he got to visit her. And she passed away. But a year late, one kilometer prior to that, there was this man that was selling fruit on the road, like watermelons. And that was at the 410 kilometer mark. So we got all these kilometer marks that help help him know how to navigate around this island. And so after his grandma passed away, he started to get into wondering about life and you know, what else is there in life. And so he went to some spiritual people, and they said, you know, Tom, sorry your grandmother passed away, but if you want to get some more insight into your historical family, there is this spiritual group, and it's about roughly 40 more kilometers away from where his grandma lived, which would be like 450 kilometers. That would be the marking sign where he would turn. And so he did. And he went there and learned a little bit about his spirituality. And at this time, the island started to fall apart because there were too many people that were, you know, greedy, wanted to catch all their waves. And there were other people that were just learning how to surf. And everyone was buying surfboards and wax. And it got to a point where there were no more surfboards and there was no more wax. So the culture of surfing on this island started to fall apart. And the green lush fields that he drove by, passing, going to these surf spots, started to turn brown. And there was not as much rain. And it became more of like a desert place, a deserty island. And at that point, Tom was like, you know, it's time to move on. And I'm going to go find another island. So Tom did that. And he found an island, and he was with surf. And the thing about this island was it was a new island, and no one had been there before. And so it was like starting a new island all over again with civilization from scratch. And he lived a happy life there, and was very happy to have left the other island because it had fallen to pieces, and lived his life there for the rest of the time. And Tom was a good guy. That's what the people told him. And he caught his last wave, and he fell very hard and broke his neck, and there was no lifeguards to help him, and he passed away. So this is a story about traveling around an island, looking for surf, listening to the locals, telling them where these are better waves, different places to go, and then seeing how greed and corrupt people could basically annihilate an island and make it fall apart. And luckily he had the smarts to leave and go start a new life, but there was no one there, so there were no lifeguards to help him, and he drowned in the water. And that was the story of Tom. Hope you like this story. If you like it, push the like button. If you don't, that's cool. Talk to you later.